Blender for Noobs.
Hello, this is Dan Nobles and welcome to Blender for Noobs, and welcome to this lesson on creating a simple house plan or floor plan. And if you're taking the course Blender 3D Modeling for Beginners, this is lesson 10 of that course and actually the final lesson of that course. What we're going to be doing in this lesson is we're going to be creating a basic floor plan of a fairly simple house, and you can use it to create the floor plan itself so you can see the interior walls and even add furniture if you like. We're not going to be doing that in this lesson, but we're going to be adding the walls, and we're going to make the basic structure of the house just so that you can get an idea of how to do that within Blender. So let's go ahead and get started with creating a basic floor plan in Blender 3D. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to load up the floor plan background that we're going to be using. That is included in this lesson as an attachment, so go ahead and download that and save it somewhere on your computer where you can find it. And in the Blender interface, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete this plane that I have up here. So I just selected it, choose X to delete, and deleting it. And you want to make sure that your 3D cursor is always in the center of your workspace here. If it's not, just do a Shift S and choose Cursor to Center. And let's go ahead and bring in that background. So I'm going to choose In to get to our menu here where we can load in the background images. And on this menu, you'll see background images. Just want to check that. Expand the menu, choose Add Image. And in this case, it's going to be a top image or top view. So I'm going to choose this and I'm going to choose top here. And then we need to open it. So we need to look for where we save that image. So in my case, I saved it in a folder called Lesson 10, and I have reference images. And then I can find it in there. It's called Floor Plan, and it's a JPEG file. So I'm going to select that and choose Open Image. And in order to see your image, you need to be in the top view. So choose 7 on your numpad, and then your image should show up. If you don't see the image here, it could be that you're not in your top orthographic view. So you can choose the number 5 on your numpad. And that toggles between top perspective and orthographic. And I'm going to choose N to remove that menu. And in order to work with this a little bit easier, I'm going to make this full screen. So I'm going to choose Control up arrow to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and save this file before I start working on it. So File, do a Save As. And then you can save your file wherever on your computer that is easy for you. But I have mine again in the folder Lesson 10. And I'm just going to name this House Plan _ V1 for version 1 in case I save different versions. And I'm just going to do a Save as Blender file. So now with that saved, we can go ahead and start modeling our floor plan. What I'm going to do first though is I'm going to go back into the Properties menu in on the keyboard and go back into the background images. And I'm going to change the opacity of the image so I can see a little bit better when I'm creating this. So just going to bump this down probably to 0.2, something like that, and choose N to remove that menu. And now we can start creating our floor plan. So the way I'm going to do this, there's a lot of different ways you could approach this, but this is just one way. If you see somebody do it a different way, it doesn't mean that it's wrong or that this method is wrong. It's just anytime you model something, there's really several different ways you can approach it. So for this, I'm going to choose Shift A, and I'm going to go to Mesh, and I'm going to add a plane. So that puts it in the center of our image here, or the center of our workspace. And I'm going to choose S, and I'm going to scale this up, just so that it's about the size of the floor plan here. And I'm going to go ahead and choose Z to go into wireframe. This allows us to see the background better. And I'm just going to move this plane down just so it fits a little bit better here for our image. So about right there, and now I need to size it along the X or scale it along the X. So SX, let's move this out to right about there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as you're okay with it. Now one note while we're doing this floor plan, I'm not going to be doing actual dimensions, but just to let you know, you can do actual dimensions in Blender. That's a question that comes up quite often. The way that you would do that is you can Control up arrow, go back to this area here to where you have your properties, and then you would go into your scene information here, and then you can check the kind of units you want, either metric or imperial. So say if we chose metric, you can change the scale and different things here. And then you can actually change, now you see meters, and that pertains to the squares that you have here as the units of measure. So if you wanted to see the actual scale of your object here, we can tab into edit mode and bring our end menu up again. And then if we scroll down here under edge info, you can show a number of different information here. So if we chose length, then now you'll see 2 meters here, 2 meters here, and that pertains to the overall size of the object that we have now. If you choose, let's see if we go into edge, you can choose an edge and it'll show you exactly what each edge, what the size of each edge is. And then if you wanted to adjust the size of your overall floor plan, what you would have to do is adjust this entire object here. So we would adjust this, scale it out, but you would also have to go here and size up your background image to fit your 3D model. But I'm not going to make this to scale or anything, so I'm going to choose N to remove that menu, and I'm going to change these units back to none, and I'm going to go back to control up arrow, full screen here. Okay, so now we have a plane, and we can actually, it's a solid plane, although we have it in wireframe mode so we can see through it. So I'm going to tab in edit mode, and now I'm going to create some edge loops on this plane. So I'm going to do a control R, go out to the side here so your edge loop is on the side, click once or select once and bring that up. And by the way, I'm going to remove those numbers so we don't see those. So I'm going to uncheck length there, choose N to remove that menu. Okay, so this is going to create that first wall there. I'm going to do control R again right here, select it and bring it down. And nothing really precise here. I'm just doing a very simple floor plan. Control R, and in this case, I'm going to come up to the top here so I get this edge loop going across the top. Select it once, and I'm going to move it over to get the sidewall. Again, Control R, select this one, move this one over to get this sidewall. Next, since we're going to put some interior walls in our model here, I'm going to go ahead and build these interior walls. So I'm going to choose Control R, come along here, and I'm really making this wall here. This wall is a little bit thinner, but for the purposes of this tutorial, we're just going to keep this the same thickness as this other wall. So Control R, add another edge loop here. Just going to bring that up there. Same thing with this one, Control R. And one over here. And we'll take care of these cutouts for the doorways later. Control R, bring another edge loop over here. And basically just creating all these different interior walls here. And I'm going to ignore these little areas here. We can create those separately. And in fact, I think I'm going to create this one right here, which is basically the closet walls here. And then I'm going to look for the walls going from side to side. So Control R, I'm going to create this one here. Control R. About there. We already have this one. Need to create these closet walls here. Control R. And again. And one right there. Control R here. And again, not being very precise. If you were to create your own floor plan, of course, you might want to take a little bit more time with it and make sure that your scales and your settings, your lines are even and measured correctly. So now with the majority of these walls created, what I'm going to do is choose Face Select, and I'm going to delete all the faces that don't pertain to any of the walls. So for example, I'm going to select this, Shift Select this, Shift Select this, all of this, and it may be easier for you to use your C tool and use your mouse wheel. You can change the size of the selection and then just paint the selections that you don't need. Right click to get rid of that C tool. X delete faces. So no, I don't need these. I don't need any of these here. X delete all those spaces. And then you can choose Z to kind of look at your setup and make sure that you deleted all the ones that you needed to delete. Still have a few here that I need to delete. So I'm going to choose this one. I believe I needed to remove that one and that one. These as well. X delete faces. Choose Z, kind of look at it. Okay, so pretty close, but we need to take care of some of these doorways and also add some of the walls that aren't there. So for example, this one here, I don't think I created. Yeah, so I'm going to choose Control R and come up here and create an edge loop. Just drag it over to here, Control R, add an edge loop right there. Select this edge right here, choose E extrude and just bring it down like so. Same thing with this one here, Control R, bring the edge loop over here, and I'm just going to select this edge right here, choose E extrude and just bring it down like so. And if you want to, you can do this little area as well. Control R, just adding edge loops here so we'll have geometry there that we can work with. Control R and choose this edge loop, E extrude, bring it out, do another Control R here, E extrude, bring it down. Now in order to fit something together like this, what you can do is I'm just going to bring this out so it fits a little bit better. And I'm going to go into Vertex Select, and I'm just going to take this vertex, Shift Select this one, choose Alt M to bring up our merge menu, and I'm going to merge at last because it's going to merge at the last vertex that I selected. Same thing with this. Select the vertex, Shift Select the next one, Alt M, merge at last, and that will merge those vertices together. Okay, and we have a few more, but I'm going to leave those. You can make those if you like. But I'm going to move on over to start fixing some of these doorways. So I'm just going to choose Control R. And I need to go in my Z menu so I can see what I'm doing. Just bring that over, Control R, bring that over there. And now that we've cut this away, we can X deselect that or delete that. Same thing with this one. Control R. Go to Faces, X delete Faces, and that takes care of that. For this one, we can go into Edge, and it's a little bit too far over, I think. So I'm just going to bring that back a little bit, and then I'm just going to Shift Select these two edges here, choose S, Y. Oops, actually I need to extrude this. E extrude. select off of it, and then choose SY, and then scale those out to about right there. And actually this one looks like it was scaled out a little bit too much, so bring that back. And like I said, you know, if you want to be real precise about it, you can definitely go into it and correct some of these areas that need corrections. So that's how you would create these door areas. Feel free to go to the other areas and make sure that your door areas are correct. Okay, and now I'm going to look at the window areas. I'm going to choose Control R, and I'm just going to put a little break where the window would be. Control R, bring that over. Control R, bring this over. Control R, bring it over here. And probably for the purpose of this model, it's pretty important for us to have a doorway here, so I'm going to do a Control R here, just so we know where that door is going to be. We already have a break here that we did for that one interior wall, but we don't need it for the wall anymore, so we can actually reuse these two pieces here to be our window opening. So I'm just going to bring that over. Same thing with these two here. I can use these, reuse these for this window opening. And then we have a back door here. I'll reuse this geometry that I don't need anymore here. And actually I don't need this one at all, this edge. So what you can do to remove an edge loop is choose X, delete edge loops, and that'll take that away. And really I guess I do need one here for this little lip of the door. So Control R, just bring that over right about there. And here's another window. Control R, bring this over. Control R, bring that one over there. And one here. Control R. Control R, just adding a bunch of edge loops here. And we have one right here. I don't need this geometry anymore, so I'm just going to move this up and use it for the window opening. And that pretty much takes care of our windows, I believe. I really don't need these, so X, delete edge loops, X, delete edge loops. And actually quite a few of excess edge loops here. Not a big deal, but when you work on something, when you work on your models, you always want to try to minimize the excess geometry that you have there. Don't really want to leave anything excess in there that you don't need. Okay, so if you see any extra edge loops in your model, just go ahead and remove them like that. So now if I choose Z back in solid view, you can kind of look at your model and make sure that you have everything that you need in order to create your simple floor plan. And now if we choose the middle mouse button and kind of rotate, we can kind of see what our floor plan is looking like so far. It's still a flat plane, but that's going to change very soon. So in order to do that, I'm going to choose Face Select here, and I'm just going to use the C tool again, bump it up a little bit, and just go through here and select our whole model. And in fact, in this case, I can choose A, Select All, because it's not going to select the light in the camera while we're in edit mode. So in this case, now all we need to do is choose E, Extrude, and just extrude your model upward. And if you were working from a reference image or you had a side view, of course you would then go into front view, one front view, and make sure that your height is correct. But since we're just kind of doing it like this simple model, simple floor plan, in this case, we can kind of estimate how tall this needs to be. So I'm going to choose A to deselect that and tab back in object mode, and you can kind of see how the house is sort of coming together, but we have a few more things to do. One of those is we're going to create a foundation. So I'm just going to do a Shift A, create mesh plane. and just S to scale that out, and then Z to go on into our top view. And you can make this, pretty much the size of the house itself. So SX, bring it out like so. SY, scale it down so that it's covering your house. Oop, didn't quite get it to where I wanted it. Let me see if I can go into Z. Yeah, Z makes it a little bit easier to see. So S to scale this down like so. Z. All right, so now we have our basic foundation. So I'm going to choose the main floor plan here and tab back into edit mode. Okay, so now we can kind of try to identify where our windows are. So if I choose 7, top view, unfortunately I'm not able to see the floor plan because I have the foundation there. So what we can do is choose the foundation, and for now choose H to hide it. Select our floor plan again, tab into edit mode. Okay, so we see that we have a window here, one here and one here, and we have a couple more along the rest of the house. So what we'll do is, in order to create these window holes, we'll go ahead and turn on occlude so we can see this a little bit better. I'm going to choose Control R and add an edge loop, and we're just going to move this up to about where we would think the top of the window is. And I can choose 1 on my numpad to see the front. Might be a little bit easier to see, where that window, top of the window should be placed. Do a Control R and put another edge loop where the bottom of the windows might be. Now I'm going to choose Face Select and go back into 7 top view. And if you know pretty much where your windows are, you can look at it like this and just X delete those faces. And you're going to have 2 faces that you need to delete, and actually that's not going to work because we have that inside wall. But that's okay, we can work with that. So I'm going to choose 1 front view, and I'm going to choose Z to go back into wireframe view, and choose Control R. And this is going to be a little bit difficult to know which one you're creating edge loops for, but if you'll notice that if I move it over a little bit, you're seeing that it's not covering the outside wall here, so that's the edge loop we want. So I'm just going to choose it and move it up here. And Control R, same thing here. Select it and move it down to the bottom here. And that should be our inside edge loop there. Now notice in this case the edge loop didn't go around the outside of the house here, so we'll have to, oh yeah, it did back here, but we'll need to correct this area here in order to create our windows. So choose Z to go back into solid view, and I'm going to choose Face Select, select this face, and X delete faces. Choose 7, and this was a window here. I believe this was a window, X delete faces. Choose those faces, X delete faces. Choose 7 top view. Let's find the rest of the windows that we need to remove. Actually, don't see any windows along here, so that's good. Don't have to worry about them. Actually, there is one right around by the bathroom. This one's a door, so I'm not going to worry about that. And actually, these other windows here, one looks like a kitchen window and one's a bathroom window, so they wouldn't be as large as the front windows here. However, this window on this side might be. So I'm just going to X delete faces and remove that window there. Choose Z. And then if you want to add some more edge loops and remove those other windows, that's fine. I'm not going to spend the extra time to do it on this, just to save time for this tutorial. So one of the other things that we need to concern ourselves with is the front door, which I believe was right here. 7 top view, yep. So it wouldn't go all the way to the top and the bottom, so we need to add some edge loops for that. So Control, well, maybe a little bit easier way to do this. We can go ahead and choose these faces here, choose E extrude. I'm going to scale this down a little bit, and then SZ to scale along the Z. And let me go into 1 front view, door wouldn't be that high, of course, so you just bring this down a little bit like so. X delete faces, and now we need to do the same thing to the other side. E, select off of it, S to scale down a little bit, and then SZ, scale along the Z, bring it down, see if we can figure out, choose one front view, SZ, just trying to get kind of the same scale here, and X delete faces. So there is our doorway. And now I'm going to do one of the window frames or windows so you will know how to complete your windows. So I'm just going to choose edge select here, and I'm going to go around and shift select all these edges. So we make sure we have that entire frame there. Make sure I didn't select anything else. Okay, and I'm going to choose Shift D to duplicate this, and I'm just going to bring this out. And I'm going to go ahead and make this a separate object, because remember, when you're modeling, you generally want to make anything in the real world that would be a separate piece as a separate object. And that way, when you work with your materials and texturing and things like that, it's a little bit easier to work with. So in order to do that, I'm going to choose P while I have this selected and separate by selection. And then now if I tab back into object mode, we have this basic house object. We also have this window frame object that we're going to work with. So with the window frame object selected, I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'm going to use this as a basis to create my window frame. So while in edge select, I'm just going to choose this edge, shift select this edge, choose F to create a face. Same thing with the other sides. Select it, shift select, F to create a face. So now this is a bit more solid. To speed things up a little bit, we can do a control up arrow, go back to our properties menu here, go to modifiers, add modifier, and I'm going to add the solidify modifier. And you can see what this has done is added some excess geometry, made it really well, solid is what it does. And if it doesn't look quite right to you, then of course you can change the thickness here. I'm going to go ahead and apply this because I want to work with the geometry that's there. I'm in edit mode, so I need to tab into object mode, and while it's selected, then I can apply this. So now when I tab back in edit mode, you can see that the geometry is actually there. And I'm going to choose control up arrow, come back here, and now with this geometry applied the way it is, we can do a little bit more with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the basic, what's going to be the basic glass. So I'm going to choose control R to create an edge loop, move my mouse wheel up once so I can have two edge loops there, select them and select them again. Do the same at the bottom, control R, move the mouse wheel up and select again. And then I'm going to shift alt select this one up here and shift alt select this one so that they're all selected, and choose SX to scale them along the X to about right there. And what this is going to be is sort of the middle part of the frame. I'm going to choose face select and just choose this bottom face here. Choose E and just move this down towards the bottom like so. And a nice little trick when you have two edge loops that you need to connect together, and hopefully they're pretty much the same size or same shape here. You can select one edge loop, and in fact we don't need these faces, so I'm going to X select that face and X select that face, delete that face, and go back into vertex select, alt select this edge loop, and shift alt select this edge loop. And with both of those selected, I'm going to choose W for the specials menu, and I'm going to choose bridge edge loops. And what that does, just as it says, it brings those edge loops together. Now we don't need this excess edge loop here anymore, so I'm going to choose alt, select that edge loop, choose X and delete edge loops. And that way we've just connected that together. Okay, so that's our basic window frame. I'm going to go ahead and add some window glass. So I'm going to choose Control R, come up here, and make sure that you're on the inside of your window frame here, and just select twice there. And while that's selected, you can choose F to make a face. Same thing here, Control R, select twice, and F to make a face. So when you go to move on towards things like creating materials and texturing, then you can change this so that your windows actually look like glass or are transparent. And one thing you might notice here is that one of these faces looks dark and the other one looks normal. And that is because the normals on these faces are different. And this one needs to be recalculated. One way you can also check this is if you choose N and go to this menu here, under normals, you can choose to display normals in different ways. I'm going to choose faces. When you do that, you can see that for this face, the normal is pointing outward. You can see where all these faces are pointing. And this is the correct way that they're supposed to be pointing, is outward. And in this case, this particular face here is pointing the wrong way. So in this case, we want our glass both to be pointing outward this way. So I'm just going to select this face here. And in order to recalculate normals, what you can do is choose your face and go to Mesh. And under Normals, you can choose Recalculate Outside, or in this case, we need to flip normals. So I just flipped it around like that. So now I can turn this view off, choose N to remove that menu there. And our basic window frame is done. So I'm going to tab back in object mode. Because this object was created out of this original object, the origin point is way over here, so we need to move that to the actual point of the window. In order to do that, just choose T on your Tools menu, go to Set Origin, and choose Origin to Geometry. And that will change the origin point back to the geometry that you're working with. So I'm going to choose T to remove that menu, and just move this into place. So there is our basic window frame. And if you like, you can also do things like scale along the Y, S, Y. It might look a little bit better that way. And you could even do things like add a extra lip or add some fake shutters to the sides of it. Now for our door, we're going to do something very similar. It's going to go back into our main model here, tab into Edit Mode, go into Edge Select, and see if I can select the edges of this doorway here. Shift Select. It's here. It's kind of hard to see. Actually, let's go ahead and close in this doorway. So I'm going to select this edge and Shift Select this edge. Choose F to make a face. Same thing for this face here. And this one as well. And this will also make it a little bit easier for us to create our door. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm going to go back to Face Select, Shift Select these faces around the doorway. Choose Shift D to duplicate that, bring that out. Choose P, separate by selection, and then tab back into object mode. Select the door here, tab into edit mode, choose A, select all. And in this case, we may want to scale down just very slightly. And we'll just go ahead and fill in the front of the door. I'm going to choose Edge Select. Select this outer edge here. Shift select this outer edge. Choose F to make a face. Same thing with these. Oops, wrong edge. Okay, so now we have our basic outside of the door here. And again, I can see that our normals need to be flipped, so I'm going to choose A, select all. And a shortcut way to do that is choose Control N, and that'll flip those normals. So now it's up to you if you want to make any kind of design on your door. You can choose faces, and I'm just going to choose this face. Choose extrude, scale down, and bring that in a little bit. Extrude, scale down, bring that out. And you could even have like a little window in there. Choose both of these here. Extrude, scale in a little bit, and maybe even Control R, add some edge loops right in the middle there. Choose these here. And extrude, scale those out a little bit. Scale them down. Maybe bring them in a little bit more like so. Just a very basic door there, nothing fancy. And tab back in edit mode. We're going to create a door handle or doorknob. So Shift A. In this case, I'm just going to create a cylinder. It's way over here. So I'm just going to choose RX90. Enter to rotate along the 90, S to scale it down, and just move it into position. And moved a little bit too far over. Okay, so one front view, scale this down. SY, scale on the Y. And I'm just going to choose this face here, extrude, scale it out, scale it up, extrude, something simple like that. Not going to spend a lot of time on that. Okay, same thing for this. Because we made it from the main object, the origin point is in the center. So we can choose our T menu, go to Set Origin, choose Origin to Geometry, and that changes the origin point. T out of that, and just bring this in to where it needs to be. And there we have a front door. We'll go ahead and do a quick save, Control S. And now we need a roof for our house. So I'm going to choose, let's see, I'm going to unhide the foundation of the house. So Alt H will unhide that. I'm going to choose that foundation. Choose Shift D to duplicate it. Just bring it up, and this will be like the start of our roof. So right about there, tab into edit mode. Choose 7 top view. Control R. Add an edge loop right in the center there, so select it twice to leave it right there. And while that is selected, it's going to bring this right up like so. You go into 3 side view, make sure it looks correct to you. Of course, the roof will normally overhang the house, so you can choose A, select everything, S to scale, and just scale it up a little bit like so. Go back into 7 top view. Choose Z so you can kind of see everything. And I'm just going to choose Control R, create another edge loop along the width of it, move my mouse wheel up once so I have 2 of them, select off of that twice, and then SX to move these out, scale these out along the X, and right to the edge of the wall there. So when you look at it, go back into Z solid view, you see something like this. And then I'm just going to select this edge, shift select this edge, choose F to make a face. Now, again, very simple way to create this. It's not something you would do normally, but it will work in this case. Same thing over here, select this edge, shift select this edge, F to make a face. And then if you want to, because it's just a basic plane that we use to create this, you can tab back into object mode, Control up arrow, go to add modifier. Your modifiers here, add modifier, and choose solidify. And that will give some thickness to the roof of the house. So we'll choose Control up arrow, come back to the view of our house. We have our foundation here, although it looks like it needs to be moved down a little bit. And in fact, if you wanted to, you could solidify that as well, because the foundation is normally going to be, some kind of a cement foundation with some thickness to it. So I'm going to do a Control S quick save. Now we can go to our viewport shading here and choose rendered and kind of look what our house looks like. Of course, we need to set up, change our sun view a little bit. So let's go back to solid, and sun's pointing that way. Select the sun and rotate it that way a little bit, and maybe even over this way a little bit. Okay, let's see how that looks. Alright, looks okay, but there's a few things we can do. I'm going to go back to solid view. Go ahead and take this plane and S scale it, just so we'll have something that the light can bounce off of. Another thing that we can do is change from Blender Render over to the Cycles Render engine. And Control up arrow, let's look at our render settings real quick. It's going to change this over to GPU. And if you're not able to change this to GPU, it just means that your graphics card doesn't handle this, but that's okay. If not, the CPU is fine, it's just a little bit slower. Under sampling, render, I'm going to change the preview to 100 samples, so it'll give us a little bit better rendered view. Control up arrow and back to rendered. And there's our house. So you can see how, working with our background floor plan image, we can pretty much get an interesting looking house. And we haven't done anything as far as assigning materials to it and assigning textures, which is of course beyond the scope of this particular tutorial. But you can see how you can get a fairly nice floor plan just by doing this basic operation here. And another thing you can do, while you're in your rendered view, I'm just going to select the roof here. You can't see it being selected, but I've just selected it. And I'm just going to choose H to hide it. And that way you can get a good view of your floor plan here as well. So I'm going to choose Alt H to bring back the roof. And there's our house plan. Now if you wanted to take this a bit further and add texturing and add materials to the house, feel free to check out some of my tutorials on texturing as well as adding materials. So this concludes this lesson on building a simple floor plan. And it's the end of the course, Blender 3D Modeling for Beginners. I really hope you enjoyed this course and this lesson. So again, thank you for watching. This has been Dan Nobles for Blender for Noobs, and I'll catch you in the next video.